Now, I gave certain information about the non-institutional and institutional sources in rural areas and how they change over a period of time. Today, I will start the institutional sources of India. There are three basic institutional sources which we have to study for our course. Number one, the cooperative credit societies, which provide short-term and medium-term loan or credit to the farmers, or in rural areas for other purposes also. There is a form of cooperative banks which also provide long-term loans. We will see the structure shortly. Then the second institution which provides major portion of the loan in agriculture and rural areas or rural credit are scheduled commercial banks like State Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, which have been merged, Bank of India, Allahabad Bank, Bank of Baroda, all the government sector banks, they were providing rural credit. So this is the second source of institutional credit, major source of institutional credit. Then the third source is regional rural banks, which also provide loan around 16 to 17% in the rural areas. So there are three major sources of institutional sources, which 14 private banks were nationalized or turned from private into government banks, taken over by the state, and they opened their branches in rural areas. So they started providing loans in the decade of 70s. In 1975, one time 96 regional rural banks were established by the government with thousands of branches, which also started providing loans. Cooperative sector was there. There were certain changes. It was reformed. When we come to that, we will study that portion. To oversee, to monitor, to provide finance or money to these institutional sources, that is cooperative sector, commercial banks, and regional rural banks. Reserve Bank will provide you, I will depict or demonstrate a certain information in the form of a table. So bear with me, I am going to present that table. So any you seriously look into it. The total amount of advances or loan to the agriculture sector increased at least 4 times, more than 4 times, from 744 crores to 3,292 crores. Let us see what happened in 1990-91. The share of cooperative sector declined from 61.6% to 49%. The share of scheduled commercial banks increased from 47.6% to 52.6%. to 47.6%, and the regional rural banks, they were providing 3.4%, and the total credit was 9,830 crores rupees. So we can see from 744 in 20 years it increased to 9,830 crores. It was a big jump in providing rural credit by the institutions or institutional sources, that is the government. So we cannot say by seeing these data here that the government was not concerned about agriculture sector. Government was doing whatever it can with limited resources to provide agriculture credit to the rural areas. Then after 10 years in 2000 and 2001, cooperative share was 39.4%. It declined from 49 to 39.4%. Scheduled commercial banks percentage increased to 52.6%. And regional rural banks was 7.9%. The total amount of money was 62,045 crores. 62,045 crores. Now, from 2001 to let us come to 2010-11. In 2010-11, cooperative share was 16.7%. Commercial bank was providing 73.8% of the loan. Regional rural bank was providing 9.2%. And the total loan which was provided to the agriculture sector was 3,01,908 crores. That means it kept on increasing gradually. Then let us come to 2015-16. In 2015-16, cooperative share was 17.5%. Scheduled commercial bank share was 68.9%. Regional rural banks share was 13.6%. And total credit which was provided by these three institutions was 8,77,200 crores. 8,77,200 crores. Now, you can write down a figure, at least total figure, that this year, in 2020-21 budget, the government has allocated or has made provision that the total rural credit to agriculture would be 13 lakh crores. 13 lakh crores. So a substantial amount of loan is being provided by these institutional sources to the farmers, to the agriculture sector. 13 lakh crore is a big amount. We cover institutional loans is provided by money lenders. So we will go and I will try to cooperative credit societies in our. So you just this structure of cooperative part. These are cooperative banks. There are few urban banks interested here in urban areas. Cooperative banks do so urban it is divided into that is short up to 50 in is long term, provide loan for short term is divided into structure. State cooperative banks is at the level of state. For example, State Cooperative Bank is located in Uttar Pradesh in Lucknow. Then there are central cooperative banks. We call it central district cooperative banks. In every city, in every district, you will find central cooperative banks. For example, in Prayagraj and Allahabad, this central district cooperative bank, district is not written here, but you can write down central district cooperative banks or central cooperative banks, it will do. This central cooperative bank is very close, it is situated very close to the university. Just 5 minutes walk away from the university, you will find a central cooperative bank. I will tell you why it is so important and relevant. The third and the most important for agriculture and rural credit is primary agricultural credit societies. In short, we write PACS, PACS, Primary Agricultural Credit Society. This is three-tier structure. At the ground level, at the village level, we have primary agricultural credit societies. Then at the district level, we have cooperative banks. At the state level, we have state cooperative banks. They basically provide loans, short-term loans or medium-term loans to the farmers. Now, let us see here only the other structure, long-term structure. In long-term structure, there are two types of banks. One is State Cooperative Agricultural and Rural Development Banks, SCARDB. If you write the acronyms, you will find I will tell you what it is. State Cooperative Agriculture Rural Development Banks. State Cooperative Agriculture and Rural Development Bank and Primary Cooperative Agriculture and Rural Development Banks. They provide loan for long term. Now, let us concentrate on this. I will tell you what are the numbers of banks, all these things. It is here. How these cooperative societies are established, let us begin from there. Concentrate on this, primary agricultural credit societies. In any village, how it is formed? In any village, 10 farmers or more, not less than 10, 10 or more. It can be 50, it can be 100, it can be 200. It can be one village, it can be two villages, three villages, adjoining villages. They form a group which is known as society. Everybody contributes certain amount of money. That is, it is decided one can contribute 50 rupees, one can contribute 100. Agricultural Credit Society, and they all pay 1,000 per person. So 20 people will pay 1,000. They have a fund of 20,000. Now, among these 20, one will be elected as secretary, one will be elected as president, and they will decide among themselves whom to provide loan. Suppose somebody approaches, he can be a member, he can be outside the group, that is non-member, and he needs 500 rupees for agriculture work, or maybe he needs money for some other consumption purpose. This group, this society, Primary Agriculture Society of 20%, will meet and they may agree to provide him 500 rupees. For what duration, for how much time, they will decide among themselves. Now, they are at the ground level. When they what kind of a person he is, whether he will be able to repay or whether he will default. Chances are that if he belongs to the same area, same village, then he will be constantly reminded that you have taken loan and you have to repay back. Time is approaching. So chances are there that the loan which has been given will be recovered, and thus another person or different persons can be provided. Now, I told you that primary agricultural credit societies, there are members in it. They have 20,000 rupees. Suppose their need of providing loan is more than 20,000. Suppose many persons approach, they need larger amount of loan, so they need more finance, more money. So they will be given more money, which is known as, they will be refinanced by the district cooperative, central cooperative banks. There may be, for example, take the case of Allahabad. Though cooperative societies are not very much developed in UP, but let us take the case of Allahabad. There are not one primary agriculture credit societies. There are thousands of villages, and maybe there are thousands of primary agricultural credit societies. Now, all credit societies will be given money from central cooperative banks. So, we were taking the example of a primary credit society where there are 20 members. They have got 20,000 rupees. Say, central cooperative banks give 1 lakh rupees to primary agricultural societies. Now they have total money of 1,20,000. So they can easily provide loan to more persons, and they can provide loan of higher amount. This is how it functions. Now central cooperative banks, they also do normal banking to a limited extent. From where central cooperative banks, if they give loans, say 1 lakh rupees to all the 1,000 primary agricultural societies, credit societies in the district, then it amounts to a large, huge amount. From where they get money? They get money from state cooperative banks. The state cooperative banks at the state level, there is only one state cooperative bank. It provides money to central cooperative banks, and central cooperative banks provide loan to primary agricultural credit societies. Now the question arises, from where state cooperative banks get money? They can get money from two sources. The major portion of money which the state cooperative banks get is from NABARD. To some extent, state government can also give money to state cooperative banks, but all the states are in dire straits. They don't have money. They always say that there is shortage of money. So it is the basic function of responsibility of NABARD to see that state cooperative banks are refinanced, and state cooperative banks give money to central, advance money to central cooperative banks, and central cooperative banks give money to primary agricultural societies. So NABARD is the apex body, the top body, which keeps monitoring, giving directions to these credit societies. Similar is the case with this state cooperative agriculture and rural development banks. They are financed by NABARD. They are financed by state cooperative banks, primary cooperative agriculture and rural development banks. There are very few branches of it, but their importance and significance is that they provide long-term loans. On March 16, write down certain information. On March 2016, in March 2016, there were 32 state cooperative banks in the country. There were 32 state cooperative banks in the country. There are certain states of eastern states, that is Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, where this cooperative sector is not developed. But cooperative sector is very, very developed in Maharashtra, in Karnataka, in Andhra Pradesh. So in March 2016, there were 32 state cooperative banks. Then 370 district cooperative central banks, that is central cooperative banks. Total 370 district cooperative banks. 92,789 primary agricultural credit societies. 92,789 primary agricultural credit societies. If you see the figure of today, it is more than 1 lakh primary agricultural credit societies. Then 20 state cooperative agricultural rural development banks. 20 state cooperative agriculture rural development banks, and 702 primary cooperative agricultural and rural development banks. Primary cooperative agriculture and rural development was providing 17% of the loan of institutional sector. That is, the share of cooperative sector was 17.5%, and the total money which was given as loan was 1,53 crores. So this is the structure of cooperative. Would be no problem in advancing loans to the farmers of India or rural area or agriculture, because primary agricultural societies is nearest, in one way you can say, nearest financial institution or bank, rural financial institution to the farmers. They can look after everything, but it is said, when studies were done, that cooperative in India has failed. It has to succeed. There are certain problems. I will talk about the problems. Just I will try to explain what I think is the main problem. You see, these cooperative sectors, they are societies. Their people are members of it. So every 2-3 years, these central cooperative banks, they elect a president and a secretary and maybe a treasurer through election. And wherever election comes, you just visualize that all the problems start from where elections are held. Whether it is state level election, whether it is Gram Pradhani election at the village level, whether it is central level, their interference of the government, the interference of muscle power, money power comes. Now what happened? When there is an election of president or secretary and treasurer and other members, of central cooperative banks, the voters are the members of primary agricultural credit societies in the district. For example, I was saying that suppose in Prayagraj or Allahabad, there are 1,000 primary agricultural credit societies. Now, and they have, if every primary agricultural society has, suppose they have 20 members each, then multiply 1,000 by 20, it is around 20,000 2 lakh members. That is, there are 2 lakh voters who will elect a president of central cooperative banks, a secretary. Now, central cooperative banks, too much money is there. Suppose Allahabad district central cooperative bank has a total money of 1,000 crores, which is to be disbursed or advanced to farmers. Now, this election, who will be the head of this 1,000 crore rupees? So, election becomes very prestigious. Anyone who has a muscle power, who is a mafia, who is a gunda, he will try, from the rural areas, he will try to become the president. He will spend money, he will threaten people, murders may take place, and when he becomes the president of Central Cooperative Bank, he may belong to any political party. Now he will do everything. The president will use this money to become a MLA or a MP or a big politician. His focus on primary agricultural credit societies, whether loan are being given, whether recovery is taking place, he is not interested in that. So this is the basic problem. Similarly, state co-president and others, people who hold certain position, they will elect a president of state cooperative bank. Now politics is involved everywhere. Because of politics, all the schemes of the government, which are very good schemes, if they are honestly implemented, then take it from me that things would have been different in the agriculture sector in the country, in the district. But what happened, these central cooperative banks, these state cooperative banks, they are being run by people like you. When you will become a low-level PCS officer, you will be posted in cooperative sector. Now everybody who qualifies for Provincial Civil Services, that is PCS, he tries to give preference to cooperative sector because too much money he can earn. And these officials, government officials, they connive with these elected members and they loot the money instead of providing prime credit or advance to the rural areas. This is the story everywhere. I need not say much on it. But if these sectors are reformed, then agricultural, rural credit to rural areas or agriculture can be streamlined, it can be made effective, and the problems of farmers to some extent can be solved. Now, to look after state cooperative banks, central cooperative bank, primary agricultural credit societies, NABARD has been given the responsibility. Officials of the NABARD, they set up their office in urban areas. Whereas in urban area, only one central cooperative bank is there in any district. But at ground level, in villages, in far-flung areas, there are thousands of primary agricultural societies. So these NABARD officials, they just see that money is being given to state cooperative banks and central cooperative banks and it is transferred to primary agricultural credit societies. But they don't do their job sincerely, they don't monitor it. So that is the problem with this cooperative sector. Now we can see we can see what cooperative credit, we can see the various evaluation studies which have been done. There are people who have gone into it, they have studied and they have come to certain conclusions. We have still time, we can look after it. Number one, what is the problem which is ailing this cooperative credit system in the country? That is, number one, low resource base. They have a low resource base. What is this? These primary agricultural credit societies, they failed to mobilize rural savings. That is, I said that primary agricultural societies, when they started getting money from central cooperative banks, district cooperative banks, then they made no effort to increase the saving of primary agricultural credit societies. For example, when I gave you cited the example of that in a primary agricultural credit society, there are 20 members. Everybody paid 1,000 rupees. That does not mean that once you have paid, you should stop. You can increase the membership. You can increase the subscription. You can ask, you can mobilize the rural savings. There are people who have savings in rural areas. So instead of 1,000, you ask every member to give 10,000 rupees. So your corpus fund will be big. And once you have big corpus fund, that money belongs to you because you have mobilized, the members have given. You have got full control on it. But the moment you take money from central cooperative banks, you stop mobilizing rural savings, you stop increasing the membership of the society, and central cooperative banks, when they give money, then they give you with certain directions that such and such person will be paid, such and such person will not be paid. And if we give you, say, 50 lakh rupees, then they will take a cut of 10 lakh rupees. They will only provide 40 lakhs, but signature will be on 50 lakhs. So all these malpractices lead to inefficient cooperative sector. So one of the assumptions was that the resource base, local level mobilization of savings will be done, but it failed miserably. No local savings are there. You know, we know, everyone knows that we look, all the villagers, all the persons in the country, they look for the government of each and every kind of support and help. The government has limited resources, it cannot do it. So we must, any society, any area, any mohalla, any colony, they should try on their own level. They should collect finances and do whatever is required. For example, suppose there is a colony, they do not have good roads in the colony. Now we keep on writing to the municipal corporation, to the government authorities, to the local MLAs, to the local corporator to make the roads. It takes years and years, they don't have fund, they don't want to do it. But if everyone who is living in the society, if they contribute certain amount, they can make the road on their own. Such things should also be given by primary agricultural credit societies. To the first, when evaluation was done, when evaluation took place, the first thing which came into light was that no rural saving was being mobilized. The second problem which the evaluation studies pointed out was that cooperative credit sector was plagued by the problem of high level of overdues. Plagued by the problem of high level of overdues, that people take loan, but they don't return. So I need not go into that. You know that in India, farmers take loan, they don't return. This is not new. There are industrialists who have taken loan, not 1 rupee or 1 crore or 100 crore, but somebody has taken 10,000 crores, somebody has taken 8,000 crores, somebody has taken 12,000 crores. Instead of returning it, they leave the country. They flee from the country. I might not take the name, but Malia, Nirav Modi, Choksi, there are thousands and thousands of them who have taken lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees from the banks, and they have fled the country. They have gone outside the country and nothing has been done. But if a farmer, if he has taken 5,000 rupees and he is not able to pay, then the government officials, the bank officials, they become very strict. They become very honest. They will serve notice to the farmers. When the policeman goes to serve the notice on the farmer is an unlettered man. He may not be educated. He is afraid of the policeman. So to give the notice, the policeman will demand money. He will pay 100, 200 rupees to the policeman, where the policeman will say that that person was not available, so we could not serve the notice. Then again after 1 month he will come, he will again take money. So he has taken a loan of 500 which he is not in a position to pay. But his house, his cattle, whatever asset he has will be confiscated by these bank officials. This is the treatment which is meted out to poor farmers. But big persons, big industrial persons, educated persons, they commit all sorts of fraud and they flee the country or they are not brought to justice. So this is what we will do regarding the cooperative credit society. There are certain other evaluation which I will take or I will deal in next week. So if you have anything to ask, you ask it now. Do you have any question? Can you read?
Sir, in primary sector, sir, in primary sector also there is a president, and why we elect them? We have to conduct exam-based president so that the corruption which take place, like they spend it in MLA, MLC elections, it will not take place.
You see, India is a democratic country. Democratic country means that everybody has got an equal right to vote. So we have voting taking place at different levels, at district level, at state level, at national level. Now, if there are 10 members or 20 members of a group of a society, for example, I will give you another example to you. You are a student of BA1 section Z, correct?
Yes, sir.
When if it was normal classes were being run, then we have got a society for you in the department which is known as Undergraduate Economic Association, UGA. Now section Z will elect 2 persons known as class representative. You can say class president. One will be a male and another will be a female. Why we will elect 2 persons? Sometimes election takes place in the class itself. Sometimes the teacher who is deputed that duty, he may nominate 2 persons, seeing who are interested, who are capable, who can do certain work. Now the duty of the class representative is to inform the class when there will be class, when there will be no class, what event will be taking place for them. We used to hold certain competition for undergraduate classes. For example, Every year there was the essay competition, there was a quiz competition, there was a debate competition, and any other competition which the student demanded. And if somebody, for example, in essay competition, we used to give prizes to person who came first, second, third. We used to give 2-3 prizes known as consolation prizes. The person who used to come first was given a book of value of around 1,500 rupees. Now the question is why this class representative system was evolved? Because we thought that it is not possible to interact with the 120 students which you have in your class. So it will be better to have a media via media, and the department will interact with these 2 persons, elected persons, and they will inform the whole class. Similar is the case with primary agricultural credit societies. There are 20 members. There is money involved. Now, who will keep the money? In whose house the money will be kept? On whose name a bank account will be opened? Not all the 20 persons or 25 persons. There should be 1 or 2. Who will run? Who will call the meeting? Who will decide what rate of interest is to be charged? Who will tell that which person has taken loan as he has not repaid? To oversee all these kinds of functions, it is necessary and essential, and election is not a bad thing. If right people are elected, then they will do right things. It will be good for the society. Well, but it is not done. I agree with you that election has not now become a negative thing. If we do not hold election for any body, that is municipal corporation, state assembly, national parliament, then the country will be run more smoothly. Because these politicians are the most corrupt person who has taken birth on this earth. All the problems we are facing is because of this political system we are having. This political system, this democratic system which we adopted, parliamentary democracy, was meant for a population who were very much aware, we were educated. But in India, I can still say that around 50% people do not know anything. What programs are run by the government for our own benefit, we do not know. So these are the problems we face. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Sir, in Panchayati system, there is a cooperative sector bank.
No, Panchayat is different. But in most of the time, you will see that the Pradhan, the Sachiv of Panchayat, they are also president or secretary of cooperative sector. Who becomes Pradhan? Who becomes Sachiv in a village? A person who is strong, who has muscle power, who has money, who is not a good person. At one time, Indian Panchayat, when election was not taking place, the most wise man, the most learned person was nominated or elected unopposed by the villagers to be the Pradhan. So problem was less. He used to solve the problem. These days, because Panchayats now get money from the government for the development of the village, everybody is interested to become Gram Pradhan so that he can make money, he can loot the funds which are given for the development of the village. Panchayat Raj is something different. Sometimes, if I have got time, I will tell you why Panchayat has failed in India. Panchayat is a very good system. In fact, it is a kind of you can compare the Panchayat system, the Panchayat with United Nations organizations, UNO, Sanyukt Rashtra Parishad. I have written a paper and I read that paper in USA about this Panchayat and everybody appreciated it. You see, the Panchayat, the most important thing, component of Panchayat, in Panchayat is Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha means all those persons who are eligible as a voter who voted to elect a Pradhan and a Sachiv. No decision can be taken without getting permission or consent from the Gram Sabha. But no meeting of Gram Sabha takes place. All decisions are taken by the Sachiv and the Pradhan. They connive among themselves and they loot all the money. This is the case in most of the cases. There may be some good Pradhan, I don't say there are not. There are some good persons even. So, anything else?
Sir, government passes too much money for AG, but why our farmers are not able to get it?
What is your name?
Abhishek Yadav, sir.
It is because of you, Abhishek Yadav. Tomorrow you will get a government post if you try hard. You may become a PCS officer, you may become a clerk, you may become a chaprasi or anything, I do not know. But if you if you get a job in the government sector, then instead of getting your salary, you will get your salary. For any work, any kind of work which you are responsible, you will demand money. So, our moral values, our values have deteriorated, has gone down. Most of you, Abhishek Yadav is studying graduation not to develop his personality. He is not a student of Allahabad University to become a good person with good moral values. He has not joined Allahabad University. He is not studying that he will reform the society. He will spread good messages, good values. Abhishek Yadav, when I say Abhishek Yadav, I do not mean you. I mean every student. Most of us, 99% of us are studying, are doing graduation in order to get a good job. And once we get a good job, we don't serve the society. We serve ourselves. Within a short, if you get a job tomorrow, within 10 years, whatever kind of job you get, you will become a crorepati. From where your salary does not amount to that, from where you have become crorepati? Through unfair means. So, there is a need to change the thinking of the population of the country. We must become good person first. Then only if everybody becomes a good person, everybody is helping the other person, then things will improve. So why farmers are not providing loan, people are misusing it in the middle, just because farmers are poor persons, farmers are not aware that the money is being allocated by the government for their development. So these are the problems. So the problem is not very simple, it is very difficult. From top to bottom, if suppose the central government gives 10,000 crore rupees to the farmers to be disbursed among the Indian farmers, believe me, by the time that money reaches the village level, 9,000 crores would be grabbed up by the central government politicians, bureaucrats, IAS officers, state politicians, state bureaucrats, district politicians, district bureaucrats. So the target, the farmers, they will get a very small amount, which is not sufficient. There are so many examples. If you see around, you will find all those things. So become a good person. Try to serve the society. Try to help the farmers. If you know the farmers, if you come from a village, don't become a politician. You go, after completing your studies, go and do farming. Try to develop the agriculture sector. And that will be the biggest contribution you will make for India's development. Anyone else?
Sir, I have a question.
Okay.
Sir, Sir, from many days I want to ask it that once a company has become privatized, will it be again nationalized? Is it in the hand of government? If it is, then how?
What? Once a company has been privatized?
Yes, sir. Then it will be again
Then?
nationalized.
Why not?
Then how,
You
sir?
see, the elected government of any state or the elected government of the center is the most powerful. They have got the greatest power. They can do anything by bringing a law in the parliament. For example, you are asking a question, I'll tell you. In 1969, 14 private banks were nationalized, taken over by the government. In 1980, 6 private banks were nationalized. Okay.
Yes, sir.
From the last 5 years, these government banks, public sector banks, the nationalized banks, they are being privatized. Recently, the government said that they are going to privatize 5 more public sector or nationalized banks. They have already privatized 2 or 3 nationalized banks. So government can do anything. There is no problem. They have got all the power on the earth. If the government can go for demonetization, for Notebandi, then they can do anything. They never asked anyone whether Notebandi was good for the people or not. And the worst sufferer of Notebandi was the farmers, the poor persons, the villagers. They could not exchange their money from the banks because banks were far away from their house. So government can privatize nationalized banks or nationalized companies whenever they want. They can nationalize private sector. For example, if a government comes to the power in the next election and they decide that they are going to nationalize all the companies of Mukesh Ambani and Gautam Adani, nobody can stop them. The only thing they will do, they will have to pass a bill in the parliament, enact a law, and they will confiscate or take over all the assets of Ambani and Adani. This is the reason one can do it.
Sir, what is your opinion on privatization?
My opinion,
Yes, sir.
I don't think my opinion matters a lot. If the government is interested in providing employment to the youth of the country, if the government is interested in providing many goods and services at a cheaper rate, then privatization should be avoided. For example, you are studying in Allahabad University by paying a fees of around 2,000 or at the most 3,000 for a year. If this university is privatized, then none from your family can ever dream of studying Allahabad University, because in 1 year to do your BA class studies, you will sector society benefit. Now you decide society benefit is more important or private benefit of an individual is more important. India has not yet developed. There are around 50% of the population who does not have many things. They need so many things, and it cannot be given by the private sector. It is the government which collects money, taxes of the people of the country. They can help them out. So government jobs are declining very fast. Public sectors are being privatized. So the worst affected age group will be the students. After 4 or 5 years, you will go out to search for a job. Then you will not get a decent job a day. Okay, you can ask whatever you want to ask tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.